and welcome back to Tournament of Flags, where we try to determine the best and worst flags in the world. Today we will be debating the Antarctica flags, and then revealing the winners. The winners are based on an averaging of the votes of 6 judges, who rank the flags in order from best to worst in their opinion. Each ranking is given a value. For example, first place receives 32 points and last place receives 1 point. The point totals for the flags are then added up. The flags with the most points are the winners, and the flags with the least points are the losers. So, Ethan, what were your favorite flags overall out of all of the Antarctica flags?
Well, my number one pick was the True South flag. As looking at many flags, I thought that this one best had the symbolism to show what Antarctica was without being overly complex, as well as having just plain writing on it, or some of the worst ones. The proportions were nice and it was creative as well as symbolic.
I agree. I ranked True South as second out of the 32 flags. I think it really is a really good job at representing Antarctica, but with using actual symbolism and art and not just having a very basic flag Antarctica. And speaking of very basic flags of Antarctica, that's why I really hate the Graham, Bertram, and the Cooper and Tucker designs.
Yeah.
So I feel the Graham Bertram was it's literally a UN flag with Antarctica on it. It's too simple. And I think even worse is the Cooper and Tucker. If you look at it, it's literally a set of symbols for Antarctica on a background. It doesn't feel like they put any thought or effort into it. I feel like you need to have actual symbolism, not just symbols, or else you're not putting the amount of creativity into making a symbol for your continent as a whole.
Additionally, I think one of the worst things for flag is when you just put the landmass on the flag. It looks more like a map than it does a flag.
I think that Antarctica doesn't have as much high quality flags because people really haven't settled there, so national pride isn't actually a factor when going into these flags. So very few of them actually have good flags, and that's why I think it's interesting that the ones that humanity was most involved in, the expedition flags, are some of the best and some of the worst flags out there.
I think by far the worst of the expeditions flag was the Irani Antarctic expedition flag. Now, I understand that expeditions flags are meant to look different than national flag. That's why I think the bird design does well. It really creates this atmosphere of what this expedition was like. But in the case of the Irani Antarctic expedition flag, it looks like just random text slapped together on a person that's just learning how to use Photoshop and Illustrator and doesn't know how to use a text box. The colors don't work. It's ugly to look at. Please, God, make it stop. So, Charlie, you mentioned that you put the True South one as your second choice, your flag. I'm curious to which one was your first choice.
Well, my first choice was actually the Antarctic Treaty flag. I know you said that it's a little too complex. I have to respectfully disagree. I think that though it may not be the usual category for a flag, but the bird one, it represents the treaty well, because it's representing an agreement to protect this continent. So I feel like that has an appropriate use for the symbol of Antarctica on the flag, and I also think it's very visually appealing to look at, and that's really one goal for a flag, even more so than symbolism, I'd say, is the fact that people like it, because a flag in its true sense is something to represent a place.
I agree.
If the flag doesn't look good, then that reflects poorly on the place or the thing that it's representing. So if a flag is visually appealing, even if it's a little complex, I still think it would be a good flag.
I agree. I think the Antarctic Treaty does a good job of balancing colors. I think the solid blue and white, instead of having random colors. And I like how it does pick a lane with what it's going for, but I feel like it could have done more in the delivery sense. it didn't cut it for me. Now I still did rank it high, but I definitely wouldn't have put it first.
Two flags that we both ranked really high were the Imperial Japanese Antarctic exploration flag. So why did you think this flag was so good?
Well, I liked its use of simplicity as well as symbolism, and those are really the two big things I look for in a flag. The way its stars were positioned, I thought it did a good job of, having pride for this expedition as well as create a good-looking flag that I would see flying. One of the top ones I had on my flag was the Antarctic Vexillological Association flag.
The flag for the Flag Society of Antarctica.
Yes. This one, the one thing I don't like about it is that it feels a little too simple. Now, it should be something a 5-year-old should be able to draw, but this looks like a 5-year-old drew it. However, I would rather see an oversimplified flag than an overcomplex one, so that's why I did rank it high.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it did a really good job. I don't think there's much symbolism, though. It doesn't feel like it represents really anything. It just sort of feels like it's there. Well, let's move on to talk about some of the micronational flags. I love micronational flags. They can be really, really good.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah, it's hit or miss. It really depends on someone's commitment to said micronation. Like, the better micronations have better flags, but some of the smaller micronations occasionally have really terrible flags.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first one I think I want to talk about is the Federated States of Antarctica flag. This one is actually a flag that was sometimes even used to represent the continent of Antarctica as a whole, independent from the micronation. Mm-hmm. What do you think of this flag?
I think the colors just clash too much in my head. It's not very pleasing to look at. Other than that, it's decent. It's not overly complex or overly simple. It's the right amount. It's just not all there for me.
Yeah. I think that, for me, I thought it was a good flag, but it didn't feel like Antarctica. The first thing I thought when I looked at it was communist Venezuela. That's what it looks like to me, as the ring of stars like Venezuela, and it has the red stripes on the sides. So it just doesn't feel like Antarctica. Like, there's no symbolism for Antarctica. Like, the stars are arranged in something that would look like a revolutionary South American flag, like the Venezuelan flag or the Colombian flag.
Or a primitive American flag.
Yeah, it looks a little like the first American flag, the circle of stars, but except they're in the center.
Mm-hmm.
And the red lines on the side clash with the blue a lot. So I thought it was a good flag.
It was a good attempt.
It was a good attempt, but I just don't feel like it's an Antarctic flag. So what do you think of the Flandrensis flag?
This flag was very middle of the road. I didn't have a huge opinion on it. It felt very much copied. I don't want to offend anyone, but it felt as if it took the old German flag and mixed it with some random, like, British lines, like,
It's like the Holy Roman Emperor lions.
Yeah.
With the overlaid on the German flag. And I also thought the symbol in the center was really terrible looking.
It looks off-center.
The shield, it looks off-center, and it doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of the flag. It looks like an image file overlaid on it, and I guess you might run into that problem with micronational flags, but Flandrensis is a pretty major micronation.
They should have updated it.
Yeah, they should have at least have a decent flag, like some of the other major micronations.
Talking about the West Arctica flag, I feel as if that one looks, with the crown in the corner, it looks like they Googled crown clip art, transparent background, and put it in the corner of, like, a Nordic country with slightly different colors.
Yeah, I guess I agree. Taking a second look, I have to agree with you. It does look like a PNG file as well that is overlaid on that, which is also pretty embarrassing for West Arctica. Flandrensis and West Arctica are two of the largest micronations that claim Antarctica, and they both have pretty terrible flags, and they also both don't look like Antarctic flags.
West Arctica as well, the crown symbol in the corner is way too complex in contrast to the rest of the flag. it feels like you just need to pick a route. Like you either go complex and make it work, like some of the flags, like the Transglobe mission one, or you go with just the cross and keep it as that. If it were just the cross, I would say that is a top tier flag.
Or if you just had the cross and maybe like some sort of spiky something in the corner.
Yeah, or just something simpler so it goes with it.
Now going from some bad micronational flags to some good micronational flags, let's talk about the ASEA flag.
This one was really one of my favorites. I put it number 2 on my entire list. This does a perfect job of, I think, encapsulating Antarctica. It has that kind of blue icy color, as well as in the center it has the icy waters, and then like with the white it could be like a glacier or something in the back. It's not too in-depth symbolism as with like the True South flag, where it's really a little bit better. That's why it's second. However, it's the perfect balance of complex to simplistic, as well as great color choices. So overall, an amazing flag.
I'd say one of the best, if not the best, micronational flag there was. But now on to some more terrible micronational flags with the Protectorate of Vega flag. And I thought this flag looked terrible.
Horrible.
It's one of those 3 bands flags, so it doesn't have any unique design. Some of the flags that do that are pretty good, but the Protector of Vega has 3 super similar colors.
It blends together, but not in a good way.
Yeah, it just feels like you're looking at spilled paint.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell where one stripe ends and another begins. It just sort of looks like a mess.
Looking at it again, it looks like some modern art you'd see at a rich person's house that's supposed to be abstract, but it looks like utter trash.
So what do you think of the United Republics of Antarctica?
Now, this is, I think, a good flag because this is the best one, I think, of where they put Antarctica on the flag. It's just, all I can really say is it's visually appealing compared to a lot of the rest of them.
Yeah, I feel, like I said earlier, you can do either a really good job or a really bad job when you put Antarctica on a flag, and I feel this one does a really good job. Moving on to some more terrible flags, let's talk about the Mary Bird Protectorate and the Principality of Arkell flags, which were, in my opinion, the 2 worst micronational flags of them all. So, the Mary Bird Protectorate, there's not much to say about it, really. It's just a Union Jack that's been, like, inverted. I literally think they just inverted a Union Jack.
It's terrible!
It's neon blue. It's just horrendous to look at. Union Jack, which is a good flag, it gets a lot of bad rap from basically, I guess, defacing other countries' flags, but the Union Jack's a good flag, and they took it and they made a terrible flag. I also feel like if you look at it closely, it looks like one of the bands is off a little.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like there's a thicker rectangle in the middle, and that just makes me so mad, which makes this flag, which is already a terrible flag, even that much worse. Principality of Arkell flag
Oh boy.
so simple, yet so complex at the same time. It probably took them like 3 seconds to make, but it has a lot of jagged edges. It's like Legos, like you said, Legos.
It'd be a great flag for Legos.
Yeah.
But it doesn't show anything about Antarctica. And if this were anything besides Legos, this would be an absolute terrible flag.
It just looks like a medieval crusade banner.
Yes.
It's a generic
pattern.
It has no background. It's a plain white background with this generic red pattern. It's the most basic, like, color scheme, red and white. And it has the most weird looking pattern.
And on the very right and left, it's thicker than the rest, which is mildly aggravating.
I think I ranked it like 3rd to last, one of my least favorites.
So I actually did rank one flag lower than the Arkell flag, and this is the Oliver Leroy design. Oh boy.
So, I agree with you there. I feel like they had the symbolism with the emperor penguin, but I think they went too literal with it. I'll really like trying to copy the exact proportions onto it makes it look like something out of a nightmare. It looks terrible.
It's gonna haunt me in my dreams.
Yeah,
it's such a bad flag.
There's no like uniformity to the flag. It just feels like 4 random colors. You don't know what's happening unless you know what the guy was thinking when he made it.
I need therapy after looking at this.
I mean, it might be decent if you took out the orange.
The orange is the worst part. Oh, it's so bad.
Well, the last group of flags we're going to debate, the territory flags, which are overall, I think, on average, if you averaged them out, is the worst group of flags. And the best one, I ranked the ensign flag for the British Antarctic Territory 10th. And that's the only one I thought that was somewhat visually appealing, and it still wasn't that great of a flag.
If you put the British flag in the corner, it devalues the flag by like 15%. So a way that I think is a little better than putting it in the corner is what the commissioner flags of Antarctica do, where they have the symbol in the center with the British flag around it. It's still not great, it's not subtle, but it's much better than putting it in the corner. It looks much better than the Australia flag and a lot of those other Pacific islands or other countries that still use the Union Jack in their flag. This way, at least, it has a little more uniqueness.
Yeah. I feel like when you have it in the corner, it's like slapping it on like a postage stamp. It doesn't feel like it fits. And I think having it as the base of the flag is still not great. But I feel it works better if you're going to have a Union Jack front and center. It works better than just slapping it in the corner. Well, moving on from flags with the British flag in the corner and on to flags with the French flag in the corner. We're going to talk about the French Southern and Antarctica Lands flag, which is another terrible flag. And this is terrible not just because it has the French flag in the corner, but there are several other terrible elements to this flag. What did you think about this flag?
The stars are decent. I like how they're placed. But what's worse than putting your country or territory on your flag is putting actual letters on a flag. It never looks good. Never do it. It just looks tacky. It looks like something you would see at a race car game.
Looks like a company logo has been put on the flag. It doesn't look like a flag representing the actual place. Well, let's finish up talking about individual flags with the Ross Dependency flag, which is a flag that you and I believe ranked very differently.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this flag?
I like this flag. Of all the British Union Jack flags, kind of ignoring that, I thought it was a decent flag. I don't like how the stars are off center, but I like the red, oddly enough. I thought the color of blue for the background was a great choice to represent Antarctica. And I thought the white stripe at the bottom, I thought it was visually appealing and added a nice, unique element to the flag. Like, you don't see that very often in flags, and I think it was a good choice on their part. But still not great in terms of all of the flags.
Well, I ranked this flag much lower than you did. I ranked this in my top 5 least favorite flags because I thought this flag was terrible. Well, first of all, it's the Union Jack at the corner. But if you look at it, the Union Jack's actually bigger and more prominent relative to the rest of the flag than it is in some of the other flags, which I think is even worse because it takes up more than a quarter of the flag is the Union Jack. And with the space that's left, they don't do much good with it. And the colors they did change, I felt were really bad. I hate the way that the red and the blue clash with each other. And I think that they should have just chosen, if they chose a different color for the stars, I would have liked it better. The red is just so overpowering that if you look at any point on the flag, the red just hurts your vision. It draws your eyes away from the blue background.
It definitely would have looked better, I think, if the stars were filled in white.
I also think that the white strip on the bottom, when I first saw this flag, when I was on Wikipedia, I thought the white strip was a byproduct of it being converted to a PNG file. And I was like, what the heck is wrong with this flag? And I was really confused. I kept looking it up and I was like, does it really have this white stripe on the bottom? Because it looks so out of place. I feel if they took the white stripe out, it would be a better flag.
So, what do you think of the Antarctic flags as a whole?
Well, I think that the Antarctic flags sort of represent what the world flags are as a whole, because the world is full of good and bad flags, and I feel like there are more bad flags in Antarctica than there were good flags, and I feel that in the world there's more bad flags than there are good flags.
If I were to rank this on the 7 continents, I would rank it a solid 6th. But generally, thinking of the world placement, I mean, there are definitely flags in the world that are worse than some of the ones that were here today, but overall, there were just too many bad ones.
And now we will reveal the final rankings for the flags.
So first we're going to start with the worst flags. So the bottom 5 flags are moving on to the worst flags of all time competition. So I'll read those at last, as well as the runner-up. But I will start from 26th place and go to the halfway point, which would be considered the bad flags. Coming in at number 26, we have the Principality of Arkell. In number 25th place, we have the flag of the Commissioner of the British Antarctic Territory. 24th, South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands. 23, flag of the Commissioner of South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands. Shield flag. Number 22, flag of the Commissioner of South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands. Number 21, Byrd's Second Antarctic Expedition. Number 20, French Southern Antarctic Lands. Number 19, Ross Dependency. Number 18, Marie Byrd. And finally, at number 17, the best of the worst flags, we have the Protectorate of Vega. The runner-up for the worst flags of all time in Antarctica is the Oliver Leroy flag. And the 5th to worst flag is Flandrensis. Ahead of that, you have South Georgia and South Sandwich Islands disc flag. Then, in 3rd to worst, the Scottish National Antarctic Expedition. 2nd to worst, British Antarctic Territory. And finally, the worst flag in all of Antarctica, the Ronnie Expedition flag.
Okay, now I will read out the best flags. We'll see which one comes in first place and which ones come in the top 5, and move on to the finals for best flags. Okay, coming in at number 16 is the British Antarctic Territory ensign flag. And number 15 is the Graham Bartram design. Number 14 is Cooper and Tucker. In 12th place, there is a tie between the Whitney Smith proposal and the West Arctica flag. 11 is the Imperial Japanese red flag. 10 is the Transglobe flag. In 9th place is the Antarctic Vexillological Association. In 8th place is the Federated States of Antarctica flag. In 6th place, there's a tie for runner-up between the Antarctic Micronational Union and the Dave Hamilton design. And now for our top 5. In 5th place is the Japanese Imperial Expedition flag. In 4th place is the United Republics of Antarctica flag. In 3rd place is the ASEA flag. In 2nd place is the Antarctic Treaty flag. And in 1st place is the True South flag.
Congratulations.
Okay, so the top 5 worst and the top 5 best will be moving on to the finals representing their continent. The rest are out. Thank you to our judges, Alex Savage and James Miller.